All right. This is possibly the most upbeat meeting I go to all year. You guys are way too excited in the morning, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, good to be here. Later on this afternoon, I'll be doing the RPA class at the association, if anyone's interested. I don't know if they're sold out yet. I haven't been to your new association, so I'm excited. Is it exciting? Good. All right. I'm looking forward to it. So, what's the latest? That's why I'm here. You want to know the latest laws, the latest cases, the latest regulations, the latest everything, right? By the way, you know what the really latest thing is? We have a hotline app. Yes. So, all of you with a smartphone, which means all of you, if you go to your app store, you look, just type in the words legal hotline, it'll come up. Download it for free. You have instant access 24/7 to all of our stuff. Like, we put up something almost every day called What's New. We're always putting the latest stuff up there. All of our Q&As, instant access to zip form right there. And the latest thing we're going to put up there in a week or so is what's the current hold time when you're calling the hotline. That can vary. Have you noticed? We're getting like 400 or 500 calls a day. When I started 31 years ago, about 80 calls a day. Now it's like 500 calls a day. And you know what? There were 100,000 realtors then, there's 180,000 now. So the number of realtors hasn't even doubled. But the hotline calls have gone up like 5 times. Why is that, do you think? Things are just more complicated. Realtors have not gotten dumber. No, it's not true. Realtors are smarter, I'll tell you right now. Realtors are a lot smarter. All of us have to be a lot smarter compared to what it was 30 years ago. Anyway, so call the hotline, call as much as you want. We don't limit you. Most of you don't abuse it. Most of you call 2 or 3 times a year. We have about 100 groupies. If you call at least once a week, you're on our groupie list. We know you. But we don't stop you. We like you because you tend to be good callers, you have good questions, and don't waste too much of our time. One thing I have noticed, so the realtor who calls at 9 a.m. is a serious realtor who wants a quick answer. The realtor who calls at 6 p.m. is in an establishment like this, drinking at the bar, and the calls take a lot longer, actually. Not kidding. All right, so what's the latest? The governor signed 808 laws last year. There's only like 3 that you really need to know about. Number 1 is anyone in the room who has a broker's license, the next time you renew your license, you got to take a 3-hour class in management and supervision. Unless you're over 70, 30 years in the business. That can't be you, that can't be you. I don't believe that. Anyway, so that's one thing. What if you're a broker associate, you don't manage anybody, so have to take it. What if I'm an agent, but I act as a manager? I would recommend taking it, you don't have to. What if I'm an agent and I don't manage anybody? There's no point in taking this class. But you can if you want to. The second thing, the second law that directly affects realtors is the big initiative from the BRE regarding marketing of teams. It has been discovered that of 180,000 realtors in this state, something like 30 or 40,000 work in teams. They don't just work directly under a broker, it's a group of them. Okay, so there are new rules if you want to market that way. For example, you're an individual realtor. Let's say I was an individual realtor in Fremont or something, and I work for Coal Bank or something, and I want to put my listing on a sign, listed by Gov Hutchinson. Do I even have to put the name of the company there?
Yes.
Yes. But my name can be bigger than the company name. In fact, unless my company has a problem, I can make my name barely legible. I mean, their name barely legible, mine really big. But if I had a group of agents that we called ourselves the Hutchinson team at Coal Banker, then my name, the team name, can be no more prominent than the company name. The company name could be bigger, but my name, my team name, cannot be bigger. And I have to put the real name of one of the team members and the BRE license number of that person and the broker's BRE license number. So I've gone from 0 BRE license numbers to 2 BRE license numbers, and I have to worry about the relative size of the names just because I chose to market with a team name rather than an individual name. And not only that, you ready for this? If you want to be a team, you only have 3 choices now of the verbiage. You have to call yourself team, group, or associates. What if I want to call my team the Hutchinson Gang? Can't do it. Team, group, or associates, that's it. If you want to market as a group, that's your only choice, okay? And we have these names. What if, though, I'm slightly different situation, what if I'm an individual agent, but I'm tired of my name? I want to call myself something else, you know? The Pleasanton Superstar at Coldwell Banker, or something like that. Well, that's a DBA. And if your broker is willing to ask the BRE for a DBA in that name, then the broker could acquire it and give it to you, the agent, to use it. Guess what? There's a new law that says brokers can now actually give the DBA to the agent, so the agent can actually own it and take it to another company if they left. But guess what? If it's an agent-owned DBA, or fictitious business name, they gotta follow the team rules, and that DBA can be no bigger than the broker's name, and you must have the real name of that person and their BRE license number, and the broker's BRE license number. So there are two situations now where you have to worry about relative size of the words and BRE license numbers on your marketing, and that is teams and salesperson-owned fictitious business names, okay? BRE is very serious about this. The two other things that the BRE is very serious about this year are, number one, they're noticing that a lot of real estate salespersons are doing property management but not going through their broker. They think just because I have a license I can do property management. Well, it's just like anything else, you have to go through your broker. The second thing, they're very concerned about what they call rent-a-brokers, where you have some agents and they have a broker, but the only reason they have a broker is because they need to have a broker, but the broker doesn't really manage the business. And he or she hasn't really has a manager either. So the BRE will randomly contact an office or even knock on the door and say, hey, is your broker here? No. Do you know where your broker is? No, not really. Do you know who your broker is? No, not really. That would be what they're looking for. Companies that are really not effectively being managed. They've noticed, what a surprise, that an overwhelming number of the violations of the law occur in offices that are not properly supervised by a broker or a good manager. So this is the way they're going after that, okay? By the way, speaking of teams, and another thing that realtors do is it's not a formal team, but you just work as partners, right? You see husband and wife partners or parent-child partners. I mean, they don't market as a team, they just tend to work together as partners, right? Nothing wrong with that. But what's interesting about that is the case that happened last year, some of you have heard about this, where two partners working down in LA, they worked at a Keller Williams office. They were working as partners. They didn't do every deal together, but they did some deals together as partners, meaning they split the work and they split the commission. They weren't a team, they didn't market as a team, they just did that. Okay, fine. Then one of the agents leaves Keller Williams and goes to a different company in Beverly Hills. At his new company in Beverly Hills, he gets a really good buyer who buys a $15 million house. It closes. He gets paid $210,000. It's a good day. Until his friend back at Keller Williams calls him up and says, way to go, where's my half? He says, what are you talking about? You've noticed that I no longer work for the company you work for. So obviously, we're not partners anymore. So obviously, go away, leave me alone, this is my commission. And the guy back at Keller Williams says, that's not the way I understand it. You owe me 105. He said, drop dead, he sued him. The trial court dismissed the case. It says, what are you talking about? You guys don't work together anymore. Plus, agents can't sue agents. If anyone owes you money, if some broker owes you money, agents can never sue agents directly. Aha. The agent who lost went to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal reversed. The Court of Appeal said, yes, agents can sue agents, because they're not suing for a commission, they're suing for their share of a commission that was already paid. And furthermore, the fact that the two agents don't work together doesn't mean anything. In other words, partnerships can be between agents at different companies. So you owe $105,000. What's the moral of this story? The next time you're out drinking with your realtor friends, and you put your arm around your buddy and say, let's do some deals together, I bet we work well together. You might have just committed yourself to millions of dollars of shared commissions, because by the way, these agreements don't have to be in writing. A verbal agreement to share commissions. So be careful what you say to your friends. I've said this for years about referral fees. A verbal agreement to pay a referral fee to another realtor is binding upon your broker. A commission sharing agreement, a partnership agreement is binding on you. And it could be verbal. So don't do it. And if you think last night when you were drunk you might have said something you regret, send him an email today saying, whatever I said last night, I didn't mean it. We are not partners. We have no agreement. Forget it. It's over. Okay? All right. It's a third law. Okay, those are the two laws. The third law I want you to know about relates to real estate in general, not brokers particularly, but there's a new deed available this year called the Transfer on Death Deed. Up until now in your life, you may run across grant deeds and quitclaim deeds and warranty deeds and trustees deeds. Now there's a TOD, Transfer on Death Deed, which is a way for someone to make sure their property goes to somebody else without doing a trust, without doing a probate. What do I look at right now? If you have own, this only applies to residential 1 to 4, by the way. Right now, if you have a house or rental property and you want to make sure it goes to somebody else when you die, you have 4 choices. Have a will and designate the will that house goes to this person. Have a trust, designate in the trust. Be joint tenants with that person. Or the 4th extreme method, actually marry the person. I don't want to go that far, but anyway, and you hold the property as community property with right of survivorship. Now there's a 5th way that avoids probate, trust, or marriage. Basically, you take this new form, you write down you're the owner, you name the beneficiary. As long as you notarize and record this deed, you have now provided that when you die, immediately the property goes to the beneficiary. All they have to do is record the death certificate and it's theirs. No probate, no trust, no nothing, it's automatic. Now, one thing about this is revocable. You can always change your mind as long as you're still alive. And it doesn't take precedence over irrevocable things. So in other words, if you've already got the property in a will or a trust, or you're already married to someone, then you can't do this. You have to end the will, end the trust, get divorced, then you could do this. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it doesn't take precedence over these other things that you've already done. Plus, if you give someone a TOD and then you get married and hold property as joint tenancy or community property with right of survivorship, that will revoke automatically this TOD. Okay, so it's very revocable, has no impact during your life, but it is a new way to transfer property. It does result in a stepped up in basis like other transfers. But anyway, it's interesting. We'll see what happens if people are going to use it. It's only residential 1 to 4. Yes?
Is it good for a certain time set or is it good forever?
Well, if you do it, it's good forever, but the law is only in effect for 5 years. I'm glad you asked that. So, in other words, they might extend it, but the way it stands right now, you'd have to record this deed by December 31st, 2020.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was the length of this law, if I understood it. I mean, once you do it, if you do it and record it before the end of 2020, it's in effect forever. But the law authorizing you to do this is a 5-year law that might be extended when the time comes, but right now it's only in effect for 5 years. Okay? Because they're concerned about fraud, or elder abuse, and they're going to see what happens with this law. But other states have this type of form, and it's been working, so I think it's probably going to survive.
If you're married,
Wait a second.
I could repeat the question.
Okay, if you're married and you have a trust,
Yes.
and you add another property,
Right.
instead of changing your trust, is this a quicker way to add
Yeah.
a property?
So in other words, you're already married, you already have a trust, you've already taken care of things, and now all of a sudden you acquire a rental property, and you want to make sure that rental property goes to one person. Yeah, you don't have to add it to the trust, you can just do this simple deed.
And you can only put one person on that.
No, very good question. By the way, for however many of these properties you own, you can do a different one for each property. You can only do one TOD per property. So if you have 2 people, you have 2 kids, you want them each to get a share, You wouldn't give each one a TOD, you do one TOD and name them both as beneficiaries. Now what if you like one kid more than the other? You can do that in a will, you can do that in a trust, but you can't do that with a TOD. If a TOD, if you have multiple bennies, they automatically get equal shares as tenants in common.
Can you?
What if one of them passes away before you do? Does their estate get anything? No. The surviving beneficiary would get everything. So it never goes to the estate of the beneficiary, it just goes to the named beneficiary. And if all the beneficiaries are gone while you're still alive, the thing has no effect at all.
So in that same light, can you stair step, so put your husband first and then put your kids? No.
If you're going to use this form and you have more than one, you can't have priorities, you can't have inequality, it's a simple process. If you want to do complicated things like that, get a lawyer, do a trust, do a will. You know, can't go wrong with that. Okay? Any more questions just on this? I got over here.
One quick clarification, when she said, put the house.
Wait, I'm coming. When she said put the house in your trust, you don't put a house in a trust anyway. You
Right.
title
Right.
the house in the trust. So you wouldn't change your trust, you could have 10 properties, you'd never change your trust. All you do is whether you put the
You can
property
take the
in the
property
trust.
in trust. In other words, you can take the property in the form of a trust. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Label it,
Right.
title it in the trust.
You're right, it's not like putting it in the trust. You're right, you're correct. That's the better way to say it. Okay, let me go on. Other things, let's talk about rentals. HUD just decided something 2 days ago that was very interesting. I don't know do I have any landlords in the room? All right, I'm talking to you. You ready for this? You can no longer, as of 2 days ago, refuse to rent to someone simply because they have a criminal record. You have to be more, you can't be a blanket, no criminals here. No, you have to take into consideration the crime and how long it's been since they've committed the crime. Maybe they committed one little crime 10 years ago, wasn't a big deal, they haven't done anything wrong since. They're basically trying to say, you don't you take it into account. It's very unclear what the order really means. But they did it, so we got to take into account the fact that you can't just have a blanket statement that I don't rent to people who have criminal records. First, one thing is clear, you can't discriminate against someone just because they've been arrested. A conviction is necessary. Second thing is, like I said, if it's, maybe it was a tax fraud issue or something like that 20 years ago, maybe that wouldn't be a good legitimate grounds to discriminate against someone. I always say come up with something else, right? Come up with something else. What if they had a DUI? Should that affect their ability to rent the property? Well, you say, I don't want a lot of drunks in my apartment, but, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know what I know why they're getting this. As they point out, they say, if you have this policy, you're not intending to discriminate, but the effect of this policy would have a disparate negative impact upon certain groups. So that's why they came up with that. It's something to think about. So there's always something new. Speaking of rentals, other new things. If you now have a rental property in California, you must have a smoke detector in every bedroom and one in the hallways. Some of you are going to say, I thought that was already true. That's not already true. If you have an older house, like a 1950 house, that you've never done any renovation work that required a permit, you don't have to have one in every bedroom. You have to have one in the whole house. Unless you're in a city. I have no idea if Pleasanton or any other cities have done what LA does and passed a local ordinance that says all rental properties have to have a smoke detector in every bedroom, no matter how old it is. But if you're not in one of those cities and it's an older house that you haven't done any permitted work on, up until now you've only had to have one smoke detector in the whole house. That's still true for sales. If you sell an older house, you don't necessarily have to put a smoke detector in every bedroom. But if you're renting residential property in California, I don't care where it is, I don't care how old it is, make sure you have a smoke alarm in every bedroom, okay? What if you got 2 stories, 2 bedrooms on the second floor, 2 bedrooms on the first floor? You need 6 smoke detectors, 1 for each bedroom, 1 for the hallway upstairs, 1 for the hallway downstairs. How many carbon monoxide detectors do you need? 1 per level. That's universal. Okay? You up on that? You good with me on that one? All right. Another one with rentals. They don't want landlords to be do-it-yourself pest control operators anymore. In other words, let's say you got a bed bug problem or a termite problem on your unit. You could hire an expert. You say, I can do this myself. I can go online and order these pesticides and do it myself. Apparently landlords have been doing that and overdoing it and killing everybody with the pesticides. So now, if you want to do it yourself, there's a disclosure requirement. There's a notice requirement. You must disclose to the tenant before you do it. What pest are you after? What pesticide are you using? How toxic is this pesticide? When are you going to start? When are you going to finish? And how much you're going to use? Yes, CAR needs a new form. We don't have a form for this yet. Maybe to avoid all this, hire the exterminator, hire the pest control person who's a professional. They will do it the right way. So that's the last thing. Yes?
Going back to your carbon monoxide.
Yes.
It's my understanding that if your building is all electrical, with maybe the exception of your gas,
I'm sorry. In respect to carbon monoxide, if you have an all-electric building with the exception of gas, water heaters, etc. on the first floor, basement, that you only need it on one floor above.
Yeah,
Is
you're
that
right. You do not need, for example, you got a condo that's 100% electric, no fireplace, and no attached garage. You don't need any carbon monoxide detectors. Right. Or if, like you said, one floor is connected, one floor isn't, you would only need one on the other floor. You're right. So that's a good point. You don't always need carbon monoxide detectors. There are exceptions. Okay, one more on rentals, and now I'll segue into HOAs. So I'm about to tell you applies to both rentals and HOAs. If you're own a rental, or you're a tenant in a rental property and you have a backyard, so we're mainly talking single-family homes, or you live in an HOA and you have a backyard. You ready for this? You now have a God-given right to a clothesline. The HOA or the landlord cannot say no clotheslines. You got a backyard, you can put up a clothesline. What about the front yard? No. What about your balcony or patio or deck? No. But if you actually have a private yard, then you have the right to do this. They can have regulations on, okay, you can only do the clothesline 3 afternoons a week or something like that. It can only be a white clothesline. It can't be a purple, multicolored. You know what I'm saying? There can be reasonable regulations, but no outright prohibitions on clotheslines. How do you like that? Now, a year ago, this same thing happened about, you might recall, I told you about, a year ago they said you can't stop a tenant or someone in HOA from engaging in personal agriculture in their backyard. Does not mean marijuana, don't get excited. It means fruits and vegetables that you grow in potted, not in the ground, but in pots. You can do that. Landlords and HOAs can't stop you. So the new thing this year is clothesline. What's going to be next year? Who knows? There'll be something else you can do in your backyard next year, okay? Speaking of HOAs, to segue into HOAs, we're in a drought. We're still in a drought. The consequence of that drought is an HOA may not require you to water your lawn unless they supply recycled water for that purpose. Similarly, landlords cannot require tenants to water their lawn if the rental property is either in an HOA or if the rental property is in a city that has water restrictions. In other words, that would supersede any rental agreement between the landlord and the tenant. Getting back to the HOA, HOAs can simply, you don't have to water your lawn at all unless the HOA supply, you may want to, but you don't have to if the HOA doesn't supply recycled water. And what if you want to go the next step and say, you know what, I think I'll just rip out the lawn and replace it with artificial grass or maybe rocks and gravel. And the HOA says, no, you're violating the landscaping guidelines. The law says, too bad about those landscaping guidelines. You have an absolute right to do that, to replace your vegetation that that has water, that uses water with something that doesn't. Now the HOA can reasonably regulate this. What does that mean? Well, it probably means they can tell you, well, if you want to do artificial grass, you have to use this kind rather than that kind. I'm sure you're not going to be surprised for me to tell you that there's already a big lawsuit on this. There's a tract in Orange County with 1,200 homes, and some of the people there are already trying to put in artificial grass, and the HOA is saying, well, if you want to do artificial grass, it's got to be this, meet these specifications, and it turns out the artificial grass people say, there's no such thing. There's no product out there that meets these specifications. So the HOA says, well, then I guess you can't do it. But HOAs can't do that. HOAs can regulate, but if an HOA regulation is so strict that it stops you from doing what it is, they can't do it. Same thing applies with like satellite dishes and solar. I mean, HOAs can regulate if you want to do solar or satellite dish, but if the regulation is so strict that it in effect stops you from doing it, they can't do it. So we'll see how that lawsuit works. It's kind of interesting, right? A couple other things real quick. Remember, any of you that are employers, you have people working for you who aren't licensees, who aren't doing licensed work, paid sick time, right? You got to give people 3 days of sick time. An hour for every 30 hours they work. You can cap it at 3 days, but if they hit 3 days and they take a sick day, you got to start accumulating again. If you want to avoid the hassle, you can give them 3 days of sick time on January 1st and say, you got 3 days, that's all I'm going to give you. They could take them the next 3 days and then quit on the 4th day, right? But at least you don't have to give them any more and keep track of them, right? By the way, my employer did that for me. My employer gave me 6 sick days on January 1st. You know who my employer is? You guys! I want to thank you. You all gave me twice as many sick days as you had to. You are generous, and I appreciate it. It's why I've been working for you 31 years. Why I'll never work for anyone else. And don't worry, I don't take sick days. I haven't taken one in 15 years, so we're good. All right. Never sick. If any of you do commercial, yeah, I'm sorry, question.
Regarding rentals, is there any update on the emotional support animals?
Very good question. There isn't, but here's the good news. You guys, once again, doing the right thing. We were tired of waiting for the Fair Housing Department to come up with regulations on emotional support animals, so you guys are sponsoring legislation. If you don't know what we're getting at, dogs come in 3 categories. Pets, service animals, emotional support animals. We understand the rules on pets. Landlords can say no pets. HOAs, by the way, have to allow 1 dog or cat. Maybe you didn't know that, they have to. Second, service animals. Landlords and HOAs have to allow service animals, but you have to prove that you need a service animal, and you also have to prove that this animal has been trained to provide the service. The third category is the problematic one, emotional support animals, where someone goes to their doctor and says, you know, I'm feeling kind of lonely. But I bet if I had a pit bull, I wouldn't be so lonely. So the doctor prescribes an untrained pit bull as a companion. Landlord goes up to the landlord, meet my new pit bull. The landlord says, you can't have a pit bull. I lose my insurance on this property. Plus, if that pit bull bugs one of the other tenants, I get sued. No. If you want a support animal, get someone else. Tenant says, no, my doctor says I get a pit bull, so I get a pit bull. So who wins that argument? The pit bull, right? Good question. A, there hasn't been a case yet, and B, the California Fair Housing Department keeps refusing to come up with regulations. So you guys are doing the right thing. You're sponsoring legislation that, if passed, will basically say, you don't have to allow any companion animal. What if they come up with I have a chimpanzee as my, I have a pony as I have a turkey as my companion animal. I mean, there will be restrictions on what qualifies as a companion animal, and landlords will be permitted to say, well, it affects my insurance, it affects the safety of my other tenants, so, in other words, and they'd have to have more backup to prove that they actually need it. So, it'll be a good bill for landlords, and I think it'll probably pass.
Can you make the tenant pay for the insurance, get his own insurance?
Yeah. You have to repeat the question. You guys aren't learning very well.
Can the landlord have the tenant pay for his own insurance?
Yeah. The question, if it comes to service animals, clearly no. In other words, if your insurance goes up because you have a service animal, too bad for you, landlord, you have to allow the service animal. But yes, this legislation, I'm not sure the final form, I think it's going to deal with that issue of, one option would be the tenant saying, well, okay, if your insurance is going up, I'll pay the insurance. What if the landlord says, well, even if you pay it, I still don't want that pit bull? You know, I think we're going to try to make it so the landlord could still say certain animals you're not forced to have, even if the tenant is willing to pay the insurance.
I got another one.
Yes.
Is it a protected class? In other words, you get 5 tenants applying for a property. One of them has a service animal,
Right.
an actual legitimate service animal. Can you just take one of the other tenants because you don't want to deal with that?
That is such a good question. And that's the problem landlords get into sometimes. Here's what they do. Landlord has a vacancy, so you put an ad out, and then you get, and you have your criteria, you have to have a credit score, whatever, your income has to be whatever. And then you get a bunch of applicants, and you pick the top 5, and then you interview the top 5. And one of them has a pit bull or something like that, so you want to reject that one. Don't do that. In fact, what I say is never pick the top 5 and interview them. Have criteria, they can be extremely strict criteria, but then the first person that meets your criteria, you take them. Because once you say, oh, several of you meet my criteria, I'm just going to interview and pick the one I like best, the 4 that you didn't take are going to say it must be because of some other reason. And since I obviously meet her objective criteria, it must be my race, it must be my religion, it must be my kids, it must be my dog. You see what I'm saying? If you want to be safe from discrimination, you take the first, your criteria can be very high. Your credit score has to be 800, your income has to be $2 million a year. You know what I mean? You can be extremely high criteria, but if you take the first person who meets that criteria, you can't be accused of discrimination.
But what if they have the pit bull?
Well, then you're going to take the pit bull. But like I said, you could already have a policy in effect that hopefully this legislation gets passed. First of all, you don't have to take a pit bull if it's just a pet. If it's a service animal, you have to take it. But if you do what she suggested and you don't take the one with the service animal, you're going to get sued. But they're going to say the only reason you didn't take it is because I had the service animal. Hopefully, if it's a companion animal pit bull, and our legislation passes, that would be a legitimate criteria to have, okay? All right, let me keep going.
What if you know that letter from that whatever psychologist or doctors is come from
This
somewhere
came off the
you
internet,
never
it's
heard
some
of?
ridiculous thing.
What if you know that it's that?
Or, now the question is, are we talking about service animal or companion animal? If it's a service
Companion,
animal,
let's say companion.
yeah, that's, our legislation is going to deal with that also. It's going to say it can't just be off the internet, it's got to be an actual medical provider, a doctor or something like that. Okay, I'm getting enough questions on this already, hurry up.
When you say take the first one, does that mean the first date of applicant, like he
Yeah.
applied 2 hours before?
Yeah. If you want to be 100% safe, take the first person who meets your objective criteria. Then you can never be accused of discriminating. All right, let me go on. A couple more things real quick. We get a lot of questions on this now. Kickbacks, sounds bad. You know, rebates to your clients are perfectly okay. You can tell someone, give someone incentive to work with you. If you work with me, I'll give you some money. That's perfectly okay. But does that have to be disclosed to the other side? If you're going to give a kickback to your buyer, does that have to be disclosed to the seller or the listing agent? No, but it may have to be on the loan application, right? You got to think about it. You can't defraud the lender. If the lender wants to know, you have to pay it. And the way I read those documents, you pretty much have to disclose to the lender if there's some type of kickback going to the buyer. Here's another issue. Realtor owns title company, realtor owns home warranty company, the broker owns a home protection, broker owns something, an affiliated business. Can the broker give their agents incentive to persuade the clients to use the affiliated company? No. I mean, you can do it if you disclose, by the way, if you give the affiliated business disclosure form to the client, you're disclosing that you're owning someone, and you can recommend that. And the broker can give the client incentive to use the affiliated company. If you use our title company, I, the broker, will cut your commission. But the broker cannot give the agent a better split because they persuade, you know what I'm saying? They persuade the client to do that. That's been coming up a lot. I took a little too much time, give me 2 more minutes. The other thing I want to talk about, those are all the laws I wanted to talk about. Cases, I want to talk about the commission sharing case. The dual agency case, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to decide the Briggy case. This is the case that's going to decide if 2 agents in the same company, one has the seller, one has the buyer. We know the broker's a dual agent, but what about the 2 salespeople? Is one just the seller's agent, one just the buyer's agent, or are they both dual agents? This is the issue the Supreme Court will decide. There is no answer right now. Okay. Final topic, form changes. There aren't a lot of form changes. All I want to point out to you, you may have noticed on the purchase contract now, in paragraph, there's a new 14C, where if the buyer checks that box, the contingency removal form attaches to the offer, right? Because in this crazy market that you're in sometime, buyers actually, to make their offer more desirable, actually want to remove their contingencies in the offer. This is a very risky thing to do, obviously, but the point is, enough buyers want to do that, so there's now a checkbox in paragraph 14C, if you didn't notice it, whereby checking that box, the contingency removal form attaches to the offer, and you can remove your contingencies right in the offer. Very risky thing to do, you tell your buyer the risk, but you can do it. The other thing is, you know that form, the SSD, the Supplemental Statutory Disclosure? It's been renamed the ESD, the Exempt Seller Disclosure, which I think is a better name because the only time you ever use that form is if you're exempt from the TDS. Who's exempt from the TDS? Probate, REO, bankruptcy, and sale by a trust. Unless the trustee used to be on title or lived there in the last 12 months. If you're not exempt, you have to do a TDS and a seller property questionnaire. If you are exempt, you don't have to do those 2, but you do have to do a different form. It's now called the Exempt Seller Disclosure. It used to be called the Supplemental Statutory Disclosure. I like the fact that they changed the name because now it helps you remember the form. You know, you say, oh, I know there's some form I'm supposed to do because my seller's exempt. What the heck's the name of that form? Maybe it's got the word exempt in it. Son of a gun, it does. My very last point, the listing form. You may have noticed that we got rid of 3 listing forms. There's no longer a probate listing form, there's no longer a mobile home listing form, and there's no longer a trust listing form. You say to yourself, well, how do I list a trust or an estate or a mobile home? You use the regular listing form, and then you check the box in paragraph 1 that says it's a probate or a mobile home, and then a new addendum will automatically attach the probate listing addendum, the mobile home listing addendum, or the trust listing advisory. And that working together will be the same thing as the old form. So you're all using the same listing form. That's all good. By the way, one last thing. You have a property in trust. So you're taking a listing for the trust. The first thing on the listing form, the very first thing, it says name of seller. If the property is being sold by a trust, who is the seller? It's not the trust, it is the trustees. An estate sale, the seller is the estate. On a trust sale, the seller is not the trust. The sellers are the trustees. So name of seller, put Gov Hutchinson trustee. You don't put Hutchinson Family Trust. You put if you want to put Gov Hutchinson trustee of the Hutchinson Family Trust, that's fine, but you may not have room for all that. The key thing is the name of the person and the word trustee. Then at the very bottom of the listing, right above the signature, hopefully you all notice this, there's now a checkbox where you attach the representative capacity signature disclosure form, just like you attach that to the purchase contract. In other words, if you're signing a listing as a principal or signing a purchase contract, not for yourself, but you're signing on behalf of a trust or a estate or a power of attorney or something, you're supposed to check that box and attach the representative capacity signature disclosure form. On that form, I would say, I, Gov Hutchinson, am the trustee for the Hutchinson Family Trust. And then the very bottom line of the listing, where the seller signs, you just sign it with the name. You don't put trustee or anything. Because you've attached the RCSD that says that name, it means trustee of the trust. So the name at the top, you put trustee, Gov Hutchinson trustee. You fill out the RCSD, and at the very bottom signature on the listing, you just put Gov Hutchinson. And I can sign all the other documents and all the amendments and all the disclosures, Gov Hutchinson. I don't have to sign everything Gov Hutchinson trustee of the trust because I took care of that with the RCSD. And I am done. Thanks for listening.
Great information, Ben. Give him another round of applause. Thank you.